Good morning, esteemed guests and participants from around the globe. We are delighted to welcome you to our webinar on greenhouse gas accounting, a comprehensive approach organized by the Sustainability Reporting Standards Board. Myself, CA Shweta Goyal, Secretary SRSB, would like to welcome you for this webinar. This session, in today's era of heightened environmental awareness, organizations are increasingly recognizing the need to measure and manage their greenhouse gas emissions. GHG accounting has emerged as a powerful tool for businesses to understand their environmental footprint, identify areas for improvement, and demonstrate their commitment to sustainability. By adopting a comprehensive GHG accounting approach, organizations can gain valuable insights into their emission sources, track progress towards reduction goals, and enhance their credibility among stakeholders. This session will promises to provide timely and enriching insights into GHG accounting, a critical tool for organizations striving to comply with regulations, enhance transparency, and achieve sustainability goals. It is our privilege to host this important event today. Now we would like to welcome CA Krati Mittalji, Haldwani branch of CIRC of ICAI, to introduce our guest speaker of today, Mr. Ashish Gupta ji. Over to Krati Mittalji.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Our guest speaker, Mr. Ashish Gupta ji, he is a seasoned mechanical engineer and sustainability professional with over 36 years of experience at BPCL, specializing in environmental initiatives, sustainability reporting, and SDG implementation. He has led key projects in greenhouse gas inventory, zero waste certification, and renewable energy. A certified professional in GRI standards and integrated reporting, he holds multiple environmental certifications and is recognized for his leadership in driving sustainable practices across global platforms like CDP and DJSI. So let us all welcome Mr. Ashish Gupta ji.
Sir, you are on mute.
Thank you, Krati. Thank you for your introduction. And I think Shweta has already set up the context, explaining what is GHG emissions and how it has become important in generally for the sake of knowledge for the people in the industry. Right. People are always think over what is the finances which are there, or profitability, all other things. And we were these things, the other things related to typically with respect to energy or emissions were less important and always related to the profits, right? This is a general day-to-day activities that we are doing. But I hope you all are aware, recently when the COP26 has taken place, where our Prime Minister has mentioned that we are going to be net zero soon. I think this thing has actually taken a lead role. And we all started talking about emissions and GHG emissions. What is GHG actually? See, these two things we have to keep it in mind, that we are talking about net zero, right? Countries are trying to reduce their emissions. So we are talking about GHG emissions, which are actually having a potential to increase the global warming, right? And he is causing emissions. So if I reduce my requirement of electricity, the same way, the person who is producing electricity would cut down his emissions. So therefore, it is affecting both of us. So those kind of emissions are considered to be indirect emissions, and they are considered to be scope 2 emissions. Correct. Now, this could be purchased electricity. It could be steam and heat and cooling. Now, if we consider an industry, it is not only electricity it may purchase even steam also from outside. So anything which is purchased from outside for your own unit is considered to be scope 2 emissions. Now, scope 3 emissions has got a vast area, and these are all other emissions which are affecting your unit or your household, and which are causing emissions are considered to be scope 3 emissions. Now, there can be two types of emissions. One is for an industry, if I talk about. One is upstream kind of activities, one is downstream kind of activities. Now, since I am from the oil company, I'll take our example only. Let's say we got a refinery, and if I purchase fuel, right? If I purchase fuel or goods or services, all those activities are coming into upstream activities. Even if I purchase crude and that crude comes with the ship tanker, that is transportation or distribution, that is also considered to be upstream. Similarly, when crude comes, now crude itself has some inherent emissions, which are known as LCA, life cycle assessment of the crude, if I take it, and which are the inherent emissions which has taken place within the crude. Those kind of emissions are considered to be fuel or energy related emissions, right? Similarly, waste, business travel, whenever we are commuting, let's say you take your car, go out, and you are causing for the business needs. See, all these are considered only for the business needs. If I am commuting, taking taxi, car, or flight, or any other mode, and because of that, no, whichever fuel which I am going to use in that vehicle, which causes emissions, are considered to be my scope 3 emissions. Similarly, in the downstream activities, if I consider our industry, when we transport the fuel from our location to any petrol pump, so the fuel which is burned by lorry is again considered to be transport and distribution sector in the downstream activities, or even the purchase of the sold products. That means whatever quantity we is being purchased or taken by the petrol pumps or ROs, or which we sell it, our throughput is normally being taken as scope 3 emissions, because ultimately all that fuel is going to burn. Correct. So anything which is being used and which is being burnt and causing emissions are and related to business is supposed to be scope 3 emissions. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so coming to certain examples, like as I mentioned about, no, let's say you consider one small unit or industry which is having, let's say, boiler, furnace, DG set, fire engine, all those kind of things, and maybe even the company vehicles also. So if you are using diesel as a fuel, LNG as a fuel, LPG as a fuel, any fuel, no, which is causing, which is burning, which can burn and cause emission, is considered to be scope 1. I mean, these are just examples which I wanted to mention here. Similarly, scope 2, as I mentioned to you, whenever we purchase electricity, see, electricity, why I am mentioning electricity time and again is because electricity is very common thing now, which we all can experience, feel, and it is not being generated by us, it is purchased. So in the first part, DG set is also generating electricity, but that electricity generation would be, there it will be more credible if we take the fuel which is used for running of generator instead of taking the electricity which is being produced. Okay. So that portion diesel we have to look into for calculating scope 1 emissions, whereas here electricity which is being generated in some other unit, let's say NTPC or state electricity board or somewhere. So that is taken as scope 2 emission. Similarly, scope 3 emissions, if we take it, so it's a very common example is our own travel. You travel by train, you travel by flight. No, if you are traveling by ship or any other mode, let's say even pipeline also, when we are transferring the product, so certain amount of emissions would be there because of the movement of product in the pipeline, right? So electricity would be consumed or something else will be consumed or product will be pushed. So that emissions which are going to take place would be scope 3 emissions. Now, as I mentioned to you, why this has become important, because we all want to reach a goal of net zero, right? India has already declared we are going to be net zero by 2070. Whereas world over, we are all talking about that globe is talking about that they are going to be net zero by 2050, right? We said 2070. Some industries have taken their own targets, but which are in alignment with India's target, but they have already declared, like in our case, we have declared we are going to be net zero by 2040. So let us understand what is the concept of net zero and see that how GHG accounting is related to this. So then only we will understand why accounting is important, why should we do the accounting, and what is the effect, let's say, how we can declare ourselves that we are a good country where we have cut down our emissions greatly, right? So what could be the ideal state? Ideal state would be whatever GHG emissions we are emitting in the atmosphere is equal to whatever we are going to remove from the atmosphere. So when emission generated is equal to emission removed, would be the ideal state. So that means no, there would be nothing would be there. It's only it'll be a clean environment, right? I would also like to mention here, GHG emissions should not be related to that particulate matter which happens in Delhi. Correct? That is SPM. It's a particulate matter we talk about. It is the condition of the air. It is not related to emissions which is causing global warming. So just to mention that, I mean, we are considering here only those emissions which are actually causing global warming and which are related to the emissions due to fuel or products which are causing, which are creating carbon dioxide. Now, the current reality, if you look at, the produced GHG emissions are always more than the removed GHG emissions. That is where the emissions are increasing and temperatures of the globe or the earth is increasing. And if we consider here, normally 99% of the emissions are due to carbon dioxide. Therefore, carbon dioxide or any other gas has been considered as equivalent of carbon dioxide, and a term called global warming potential has been put to each gas, right? So our unit of GHG emissions would be empty CO2 equivalent, metric ton CO2 equivalent, that is 1 unit of emission. Like the measurement of or the unit of measurement of length is meter, right? Or you can say kilometer. Similarly, in case of GHG emissions, the unit would be empty CO2e equivalent. So when we say 100 units of emissions means 100 empty CO2 equivalent. Now, see, our major focus is what? That whatever residual GHG emissions are there, that should be removed. So once that will be removed, then the condition would come when the produced emissions are equal to removed emissions, and that condition is considered to be net zero in toto. Now, how to reach it, what to do, how that can be done. So ultimately, now we have to cut down our emissions, right? Now, emissions, how it takes place or what is going to happen with the residual GHG emissions. Either we should cut down the emissions in toto. That means if instead of no generating electricity from coal, I would do it from renewable. Correct. If I use solar, which is a natural energy, and through that, if I am going to generate electricity, so emissions, no, it is not going to generate carbon dioxide. So emissions will cut down. So that is one way of cutting down the emissions. Other thing is sequestration, right? Now sequestration, what does that mean? That we absorb the emissions, correct? Now there are various methods of absorption of emissions. Maybe no carbon dioxide as a gas, we use it and then create different kind of products. Or trees are one of the better methods, no, best method naturally, which absorbs carbon dioxide. Correct. So these are the two possible ways that no industry is looking for cutting down emissions to reach to this goal of net zero, which actually talks about, which not only first it accounts and then only it talks about how to cut down emissions in total to reach that goal. Okay. Therefore, our major focus of any industry or even for no any unit or even your household or anywhere wherever you are accounting this, we have to consider which are the possible methods to cut down emissions, either through planting trees or utilizing carbon dioxide or no cutting down the emission per se, which is getting generated by using that energy into any of the equipment. Now, let us understand the global scenario also here. Why this term has become important and what people are talking about. Now, in globe, what they talk about? Now, why it has become important? There are certain meetings which have taken place globally where India is also one of the party, and there people have taken targets to cut down their emissions. So this COP means Conference of Parties, right? And the important one was earlier it was COP21, which was considered to be Paris Agreement, where majorly targets has been decided and signed by almost 184 countries, which said that our focus would be to cut down emissions and we will ensure that global warming should not go beyond 2 degrees centigrade or even less than, I mean, they talked about that it should not go beyond 2 degrees centigrade or even they have taken a stringent target that we will try to maintain it 1.5 degrees centigrade. Okay, so this is the meeting which has taken place in COP21, correct, 2015. After that, there is another one which is COP26, where actually things have become. That things have become more important, where countries have started talking about that. In that, lot of things are happening globally because of the climate change, and lot of natural disasters are taking place. So countries have become more and more conscious about acting on this typical topic of cutting down emissions and to reach to net zero scenarios. Now, this COP26, which held in Glasgow in November 21, where India also announced the targets which India as a country is going to take it. Correct. And these targets are actually called as NDCs. NDCs is the nationally determined contributions. That means that every country, let's say there are 100 units of emissions which are there, which is being generated by 100 countries. So each country will take its own target and say that I will cut down so much. Okay, so these are considered to be nationally determined contributions. And India during that meeting has said that it will focus on these 5 elements. One is that we will become net zero by 2070. Another thing is our non-fossil fuel energy capacity will be 500 gigawatt. So therefore, today you find lot of activities are taking place in renewable energy. We are putting solar and wind energy left and right. Even the household also government has given benefits that we can put solar on the household, so that our normal electricity which is being generated through coal as a raw material should come down. Correct. Similarly, 50% of energy requirements from renewable energy by 2030. So one is we will increase our renewable energy by 500 gigawatt. Other thing is the total requirement of the country we should be able to meet through renewable energy by 2030. Now, it's a very stringent target if you look at. Another is carbon emissions to be reduced by 1 billion tons. Now, this means that either through putting more and more forestation, or maybe absorbing that carbon dioxide which is being generated, we will cut down our emissions by 1 billion tons. Another important one is bringing down the economy's carbon intensity below 45%. Now, carbon intensity means energy, emission oblique energy. Correct? The emission generated by the energy consumed. Now, if we cut down this energy part, energy, how we are going to generate? Either if we generate it through the fossil fuel, or if we are going to generate through renewable. That means if the emissions portion will come down by generating energy through renewable, automatically carbon intensity will also come down. So that is what the target which has been taken by India, that we will cut down our carbon intensity by almost 45% by 2030. So these are the NDCs which are being taken by India and declared during that meeting in Glasgow. And as a company, we have taken a target that we will be net zero by 2040. So after 26, there are 2 more meetings that have taken place. You would have read it in the newspaper. One is COP27 and then COP28. Now we all are waiting for COP29. Lot of actions and lot of activities, and this not only lead to discussions, but this also lead to the policies which are coming forth in the country as of today. I think last year only, government has declared that household can put solar panels on their household and generate more and more electricity, and government is going to give benefits. So this all are related to the kind of meeting which globally India is participating. Now this COP27 is another important meeting which has taken place 2022 in Sharm el Sheikh, Egypt. Now the important findings there, what they talked about is that a country cannot claim net zero if we continue to build or invest on fossil fuel. Now, we are the industry which is now actually talking about fossil fuel. Petrol, diesel, kerosene, all this fuel are considered to be fossil fuel. So what they said is it will not be acceptable if it is going to continuously generate fossil fuel and then say, no, we are net zero. I mean, that is not acceptable. That is what they have mentioned here. No room for new investment in fossil fuel if we are to achieve 1.5 degrees centigrade. As I already mentioned in COP21, 1.5 degrees centigrade was considered to be the target for global warming. And no, during this meeting, it was decided that no new investments should take place across globe in fossil fuel. No claim to net zero in case a country is involved in deforestation. Correct. So you have to carry out forestation. If deforestation is being done, then the net zero claim will not be acceptable, and damaging natural ecosystem would also not be acceptable. Again, reduce emissions every 5 years. The target has to be taken by each country that now every 5 years, what is the kind of emissions which they are going to reduce and which should be in line with 1.5 degrees centigrade. Okay. No purchase of cheap low integrity credits. Now, this is something which is already there in the market, which is known as greenwashing, right? So, what country does is, or what a company does, it purchases credits from somebody else, which may or may not be giving you the right kind of a carbon credit. So in such a case, they have put a limit that cheap credits will not be acceptable. Instead of that, you have to cut down your own emissions, and balance can only be purchased through credits. And this has to be absolute emission reduction. Correct. I mean, it should not happen that somewhere we are actually reducing and ultimately total emissions are increasing. So that is also not acceptable. Total value chain, wherever this is happening for one industry, they have to cut down totally. And total capital expenditure and business strategy should be in alignment with the targets which somebody is going to take it, any industry is going to take it, in alignment with the country of which is declaring net zero targets. So these are again not much objective items are being taken, but again this is very important meeting where a lot of things have been stringent actions has been done, and people are tightening the noose in saying that no, this is important, we all have to look into that, how to cut down emissions of the country, and this emissions means GHG emissions only. Now, another important meeting which has taken place recently was COP28. Now, in this meeting, I think a lot of actions and the funding has also been decided. See, earlier the problem was, you would have read in the newspaper or seen in the TV, India, every developing country is saying that no, you have to fund us so that we can put up a project properly, because we don't have funds. Whereas the Western countries, those who have actually created emissions, today they are saying you cut down emissions. Now, energy, if you look at, energy is actually the measure of growth also of a country. The more the per capita energy, if you are going to use it, the more the growth of the country can be seen. Now, the problem what happens is why India has gone for 2070, because I think our Prime Minister very categorically mentioned that we should not cut down our growth. We are developing country today, and I think the India's peak is going to come somewhere around 2040 or 2050, which is the target being taken by the West, that we will become net zero. So I think that was not relevant. So that is why India has taken a target by 2070 that let our peak to come in the growth, and then maybe we will look more forward-looking statements towards cutting down our emissions. Right. So this COP28 is somewhere where it is considered that fossil fuel era is going to cut down for the globe, but not for the India, because we are still looking for growth in the fossil fuel as of now. Countries have to take action, and they have also taken the targets, like we have taken that 500 gigawatt renewable energy will be there. So here it is decided that tripling the renewable energy capacity and also doubling the energy efficiency improvement. Every industry has to look into how to improve the energy efficiency within their units, right? And then a loss and damage fund was also being created. Earlier, I mean, this pollution control board was considered to be one of the only compliance unit, but today it has become a punitive unit also. Now, every now and then you will find NGT cases are there, or no PCB has put a penalty on our industry. So you all are dealing with industry. So you all are aware now today that pollution or the PCB or environment related compliances and penalties are taking place majorly, across our country. Even if you are not doing your vehicle check for pollution, there also penalty can take place, right? So this has become very, very important. And here what they said is, we are going to create a fund. So globally, a 700 million fund was created, and which can be used by the developing industries depending on the kind of project which they are going to use it. So earlier there was no fund. I think during this meeting only some small amount of fund has been created, which can be used by the countries. Then countries have also agreed for targets, global goal of adaptation, that what targets are to be taken, how to cut down emissions, what are the climate resilient futures, and how efforts can be assessed. What are the actions to be taken with respect to climate, and what are the efforts which are supposed to be done by the country. Like if you consider India as a country, then we are today talking about green hydrogen. We are talking about CBG, compressed biogas, right? So and we are talking about renewable energy. So these are the efforts which are being taken by by the country across by the industrial units, and they are trying to cut down emissions totally, so that India should be in alignment with meeting the targets. So this is something important which has taken place during COP28, where even US has also agreed to cut down emissions, which was earlier not the party. I think it's only China which is not there, but most of the units or most of the countries has accepted this, created funds, and today focusing on that. And climate change has become one of the very, very important risk in the risk register of every company today. I mean, even the investors have started asking, what are the actions which any country, any industrial unit is going to take with respect to climate change. So I think this is the status as of now. And maybe, next year onward, we will find more things which countries are going to talk about with respect to reaching net zero goals. Okay. Now, coming once again back to our topic. What are the different types of emission factors? Now, there are three types of factors, right? These are normally not being talked about. Normally, for emissions, we only talk about the types of emissions which are scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. But emission factors are also of three types: tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, right? I really don't know. No, have you heard about that IPCC factors are there, or DEFRA factors are there, or EPA factors are there? No. So the tier 1 factors are considered to be those factors which are more generic in nature, which are global standard factors, which have been made. I mean, which have been made by certain this GHG protocol or even IPCC, right? Interpanel Government of Climate Change. So they have made these standard factors, and they have also put it in their guidelines that if you are going to use this fuel, then you can consider this emission factor, which is a repository of various fuels in various across globe which has been used, and finally they have found, okay, this factor can be acceptable for all. Correct. So those factors are known as tier 1 factors. Some I have already told you, like IPCC factor. Correct. Tier 2 factors are country specific. Let's say India as a country or UK as a country, they have calculated, or they have found out country specific factors, the kind of crude which they are processing, and when they are producing diesel or any other fuel, and then they calculated the emission factor with respect to their country. So those are country specific factors, like DEFRA UK, any factor which is in their DEFRA guidelines, those are considered to be country specific factors. Now, third factors are country specific, unit specific. Okay. Now, unit specific factor, I can tell you, like we have a refinery. Now, refinery is generating a fuel, and they found out now what is the energy related to that, and they divided by the emissions which is causing by that unit of energy and the carbon dioxide which is generated. So, with that, if you are going to calculate the emission factor, then that will be unit specific. Okay. Now, this factor is actually, most accurate factor for that particular unit, which is processing that typical crude, right? Because you are calculating with that crude, that factor which is to be used. But here the problem is different refineries are processing different crude. So there can be so many other factors which are possible for single fuel. Correct. And on top of that, every time, no, let's say you are changing a crude, you are changing a fuel, then the factor would also change accordingly. So only problem is with tier 3 factors that it could be only unit specific, but it cannot be acceptable for the entire country. And the calculation would become difficult if somebody is going to use tier 3 factors. But you take it for granted, this will be the most accurate factor for that particular combustion technology or fuel. I hope these factors are clear. Any questions till now?
Yes, sir. We are posting.
Okay.
Posting in the chat box, sir.
Okay. So that chat box question, I'll take it later. But if somebody would like to ask that, I can tell you, I mean, if this we need to understand very categorically that we have 3 types of factors, which are tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Normally, emission factors are referred as tier 1 factors, which are taken from the guidelines or the manuals, where normally we have IPCC factor, which I have mentioned, or GHG protocol, or other factors can be EPA, DEFRA, such kind of factors which are possible. I think I will see that question. Need to understand the intricacies of accounting of greenhouse effect. See, what happens is whenever as I mentioned, okay, since this question has come, I'll tell you, when greenhouse gas happens, then it gets accumulated in the atmosphere. And the problem is this gas does not get dissipated in the atmosphere. It remains there for years together. And that is where the global warming actually is taking place. So that is the reason why it is being said that no, we have to disperse those gas. So carbon dioxide is major gas which gets accumulated in the atmosphere, and it doesn't get dissipated. It doesn't get it does not break out. Okay. So more and more, I mean, whatever energy which you are going to create it here and what heat is getting generated, it is actually warming the atmosphere. So that is how this global warming is taking place. I hope, am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So going forward, now, no, I mean, why another important thing is, let's say, look at the benefits now, what is going to happen. One is climate emergency, as I already mentioned, that we all are talking about now. That climate risk has become very, very important for any industry. Another thing is industry also wants to take a lead here. Let's say today, if you don't do that, so you will not be early mover. Every industry wants to be an early mover for any initiative which is going to take place. Secondly, stakeholder expectations. No people. I mean, stakeholder means the people, those who are connected with that. Now, in our kind of industry, there are so many stakeholders. Everyone is a consumer of fuel or the kind of products what we are generating. So they are also looking at the kind of commitments which the industry is doing, right? So stakeholder is also looking for that we are not creating environmental havoc, or we are not spoiling the earth or the air, right? I mean, we are generating fuel, but people or stakeholder are also looking for that our fuel should be clean, right? I mean, the time has gone when the dirty fuel was there. If we today look at India as a country, we are selling BS6 fuel. now which is the cleanest in the world. Okay, so our petrol and diesel both are meeting BS6 fuel. That means that the sulfur in the fuel is less than 10 ppm, whereas earlier it used to be almost 350 ppm. So total sulfur has been cut down from the fuel. The effect of that would be that sulfur dioxide or the acidity in the fuel has cut down drastically, and sulfur normally, when you used to move in Delhi, you will find that acidic fumes are coming. Today, that cleanliness has happened. Even we are using CNG. Now, again, CNG is a very clean fuel, or even earlier people were using LPG. So that is how stakeholders are also looking for that the industry which is selling that product should be environmental friendly. I think that is what today's scenario is taking place. Again, regulatory action, right? I mean, as I mentioned to you, in your vehicle, if you are not doing your pollution check, so regulatory action is taking place. Since most of the people are from Delhi, I would say at a time it has come, when this parali burning and all that is there, that government has come out with the circular that BS4 vehicles can only come out on the road. So many people have to stop their diesel vehicles, right? They have to travel by train and other things. So these are the regulatory actions. This is with the day-to-day life. If you look at the industry, we cannot pollute, within the industry, within the unit, as well as outside also. So a lot of regulatory actions have started coming in here. And then technology transformation is also taking place. No, I mean, earlier we are having some process in our refineries. Today we are looking into using green hydrogen there. Right. So there is a total change in the technology. Today, EVs have taken place. No, earlier there was no electric vehicle available on the road, but EVs are coming up, biofuel vehicles are coming up, CBG is getting generated. So all these are happening, maybe slow, but actually it is happening very fast. Something which was not there 2-3 years back, today you will find so many vehicles moving on the road. So those things we can experience. What is happening in the industry, you may not. Today, NTPC, who's totally dependent on thermal electricity, is highest producer of renewable electricity. Right? Adani is talking about green power. So, I mean, this is how things are changing. Another very important regulation which you all are aware of, this is BRSR report. See, in annual report, all CAs are involved into that. Now, statutory audit is taking place. Now, with this reporting, statutory audit of not only financial but even non-financial have started taking place. And this BRSR report is basically focusing on environment, social, and governance structure of a company. Right? This all is totally non-financial, where company's performance is being looked into. What a company is doing besides profitability into initiatives which are taken place on reduction of emissions, actions on environment, as well as on social also. Social means safety in the unit, or what are the benefits which are given to employees and stakeholders, contractors. So many other things are there. So this is how regulatory changes are taking place within our country. Right. And it is also talking about reasonable assurance, means that it has to be third party audited. Whatever report we are preparing, it has to be audited by third party, and then only we have to report. So today, annual report has got two functions: financials, which are being done by statutory bodies or statutory auditors, besides non-financial, which has to also been done by either statutory auditors or some third party. Right. For the more credibility of a report, or for the more credibility of the performance of the company with respect to ESG. Similarly, the other countries, if you look at now, the CBAM has taken place now, where carbon border adjustment mechanism, what they said is, if you are going to sell us any now, if they are going to import, let's say if UK is going to import something, or European countries are going to import something, then they will also look into the emissions which are associated with that product. And if it is there, they are going to put a taxation on that. So that is carbon border adjustment mechanism, which will cut down our exports to those countries. right? If we are producing raw materials which are having more emissions, associated with that, right? Another important is like we are talking about BRSR. In European countries, they are talking about CSRD. Now, for large companies, they said anything on ESG, they have to follow the guidelines and publicly report on corporate sustainability reporting. Correct. Unless they report, it will not happen. Unless they report, it will be considered as if they are not meeting the statutory requirements. Correct. Now, I mean, these are the regulatory landscape which are today taking place globally. And I mean, every person is actually focusing not only profitability, but also the items which are related to non-financial and especially onto energy and emissions of a unit. No, I mean, what is the amount of energy being consumed and what is the amount of emissions which are being generated? So that is why I mentioned BRSR has become important. And if we look at the items which are there in BRSR, which are being assured, one important factor is change in GHG footprint. Right. This GHG change in GHG footprint means what was earlier greenhouse gas emissions, which was calculated by the company, and what is next year. No, is it increasing or decreasing? Correct. So very important parts are GHG, energy emissions and water footprint, and waste footprint. Now, are we generating waste or are we reducing waste? Similarly, a lot of items are also on governance as well as social. So today, any unit which is having a large market cap or a unit which is appearing in 1,000 market cap companies in India are supposed to produce their own BRSR report. Correct. And also assured by third party. Now, this is the roadmap which SEBI has given to industry. That first thing is financial year 23, it has become mandatory for all units to report on BRSR. And 24 onwards, large companies are supposed to large 150 companies are also supposed to get their reasonable assurance on BRSR core indicators, which just now I showed you. 25, we are also supposed to carry out assurance on value chain. I mean, stakeholder assurance has also to be done. And maybe they are also going to talk about ratings by 26. So a lot of rating agencies you would have heard of, like CRISIL rating is there, but they are all onto financials. But the SEBI and BRSR are actually talking about non-financials. So maybe non-financial rating on ESG ratings would start somewhere in 2026 for our country. So things are becoming slightly more and more important, and the topic which we are discussing today are one of the important constituent or parameter which we all need to keep in focus. That how to report, what to do, how to calculate, so those kind of things. Now, this is something which I am only talking about our industry as a whole. We have already accounted. Somewhere we have taken a baseline and we found that our total emissions are somewhere around 10.3 million metric ton CO2 equivalent. Right. I mean, this I will now tell you how to calculate. Now, basically, how accounting is to be done, what are the factors to be taken. I will show you that after this, but this is what I am showing you, how this will appear. Like we have 3 refineries. We have a business in pipelines, LPG, retail, gas, INC, lubricant, aviation. Right. So all these places we have seen the kind of emissions which are taking place, and the emissions which I am talking about today is scope 1, scope 2 here. So these are only scope 1 and scope 2 emissions, because scope 3 emissions, all these 15 factors we have not calculated. Okay, that I will tell you what is the reason for that and what is important for us for oil and gas sector. But here you can visualize and see that almost 85 to 90% of our emissions of our kind of industry is mainly happening in the refinery. For scope 1 and scope 2, balance units emissions are very low. Okay. Now, here also, in the kind of our marketing units, right? In our marketing units means like you have seen petrol pumps, retail, you have seen LPG. Similarly, you have seen pipeline, right, or lubricant business. There mainly emissions are taking place due to electricity. Correct. The major factor which is being consumed there is electricity. Some amount of diesel they are consuming for diesel, or some amount of diesel they are consuming for fire engine for the safety purpose. Okay. So majorly our electricity consumption is no highest there with respect to generation of electricity, with respect to generation of emissions, which is basically scope 2. So if we have to cut down our emissions, we have to either use renewable energy or reduce the energy consumption, electricity consumption. Okay, this is our roadmap. Now we are no, as a company, no, I'll just show you. I mean, we have also decided that we are going to be net zero by 2040, and these are the emission values which we are putting, that let's say by 2035 we will cut down our emissions to 6.5, whereas with our normal process this would have gone to 16.4. So what we are here saying is that the actions what we are going to take it within our industry will cut down our emissions to such a level. And how that will be? Like these are the levers which you are going to use it: renewable energy, green hydrogen, bio-CNG, efficiency, CCUS. CCUS is carbon capture and utilization and storage. Okay. So these are the ways industry is generally looking for. Oil and gas sector is no in alignment. They are generally looking for these kind of levers to cut down our emissions. So majorly our investments are also coming into the same lines. I mean, within these levers only, mostly, every industry is putting their investment. Like even if you are putting refinery or any unit, we are right now considering how to generate green hydrogen there, right, which is supposed to be used in processes, and how to maximize use of renewable energy there, instead of using some fuel as a fuel for processing units. Now these are, like as I mentioned, about scope 3 categories. Correct. So this I'll take you a different presentation on scope 3, which will tell you what is important for scope 3 and how it is to be calculated. I'll not put it here as of now. Okay. So this is generally about the overview about the GHG accounting, or GHG. What is the meaning of GHG? Why it has become important? Why countries are focusing on that? And why it has become important for you also. Now a lot of questions have come, it seems. Should I first go with the questions and then come here? Then
Yes, sir.
go for counting part. Okay, then go for
Yes.
scope, right?
Yes,
So that is how I will take it. Because now, unless you answer the questions, people will feel they have not clarified what what were the doubts. How can we stop use of coal for power? Very good question. How do you stop coal? You start generating electricity through wind, tidal, hydel, and solar. I mentioned an example that NTPC has started generating renewable energy in a large way. Today, in terms of gigawatts, they are talking about generation of renewable energy. They have made a separate business unit or even JV for generation, for using renewable, for setting up renewable energy projects. So those projects are considered to be, that is one of the method of stopping of coal. Or you can go for hydel electricity, natural way. So you can stop the coal and cut down emissions. You can use nuclear, you can go for tidal. So those are the various initiatives people today are looking for. We are highest producer of GHG. We are highest producer of GHG, but per capita is very less as compared to other countries. What actions are taken for municipal waste, which is highest in India? So are you asking a question on waste, or is it on emissions? See, this is very clear. No developing country, as I mentioned, we are using per capita less energy only. That is the reason I mentioned that India has not taken a target which Western countries have taken, that they'll become net zero by 2050. We intelligently we have taken 2070, because somewhere we understand, I think the think tanks of the country understand that our peak is going to happen somewhere around 2035, 40, right? So we are actually growing today, so we are using more and more energy, but at the same time we are trying to find out ways to cut down our emissions. So our emission intensity will come down. Correct. So that is what my answer to your first part. Second is municipal waste, which is highest in India. You are correct. No, all around we find a lot of wastage around. But I think government has come out with a policy called EPR, Extended Producer Responsibility, which was not earlier implemented, in a right spirit. But I think and this policy has come in 2016. Correct. But today, in a letter and spirit, it has been implemented, or even punitive actions have also started. The purpose of this policy is that the person who is producing, it is his responsibility to dispose that amount of waste responsibly, with responsibility. Okay. Now I'll give you some example. Like, we are brand owner. BPCL is a brand owner for lubricant, and we are using plastic to an extent of 5,000 ton. So it is our responsibility that 5,000 ton we will collect it from any municipal waste. Okay, plastic only, and dispose it, either incinerate or make different products of that plastic. So that is how this waste can come down. There are many more methods of reducing waste, but I think this is a very strong action which has been taken by the country or government to cut down waste under EPR. Even battery waste is under EPR. This is there. Metal waste is there. I mean, the total purview of this EPR is extending more and more. And actually, the government is looking for Surat kind of change, no? Surat or Indore kind of a change, where Indore has become the cleanest city in the country. Similarly, when this action will take place more, for your kind information, Asian Paint is almost disposing 30,000 tons of plastic today. I mean, we are not experiencing, because day to day we find that so much waste is around. But I think for a country like India, it will take some time by the time people realize that yes, waste can also be reduced. And there is another initiative which has been started by the government, known as Lifestyle for Environment, where also, government is focusing on that individual like you and me are also look for the better initiatives to cut down emissions within our own lifestyle, which is also going to reduce emissions to an extent of 20%. For verification purpose, which factor can be used? This I'll come out in the next part of presentation. Correct. And to show you, which are better to be used. How we can find these 3 tiers details? You can go to GHG protocol, or you can this IPCC this standard is there, where we can read about all these 1, 2, 3 generally. Do we have a list of what are the classified under tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, depending on the industry? For example, crude oil used by aviation industry is different from shipping industry. No, normally, see, crude oil is one. Let's say you take crude, whatever crude oil has come. Correct. Now, aviation industry is using a aviation fuel, whereas shipping industry may be using LDO, furnace oil, or diesel, or some other fuel, or low sulfur fuel. So these two fuels have got different properties, which depends on crude may be generating various fuels. One crude, you can get the different cuts would be possible depending on the kind of fuel which is required. You have to maintain these specifications and then generate that fuel. For example, if I tell you, if I have to increase the production of diesel, I may have to cut down kerosene. correct? Because I have to distill more and more fuel, which will come to diesel. And I may also have to, if I have to increase furnace oil, I may have to cut down production of petrol and diesel. Similarly, aviation is a fuel which is near to diesel, but having a low pour point. Because no jet fuel, if it goes, it's a clean fuel, but when it goes into aircraft, then you have to ensure that it should not become solid at low temperatures. How do we find अच्छा ये तो हो गया ना. How do we calculate carbon credit, say renewable energy, solar tree plantation? I think this is not the topic here as of now. There can be a separate topic. We can take it now with respect to carbon credits. No, I don't want to give you such a kind of an answer, but no, still it's a very large topic where we have to find out the amount of emissions which has been cut down. The project has to be registered with some kind of a registry, and then to make out whether it is possible to take the credit with that kind of project which will generate carbon credits, and to trade in that framework and to get the benefit. At one point of time, this carbon credit value has become almost zero, almost zero. Earlier, one mechanism was implemented, which was known as CDM mechanism, Clean Development Mechanism. Somewhere around 2015 onwards, the value of that carbon credit, like a stock market, value was almost negative or negligible. But today, once again, it has come to picture because of the carbon taxation, right? So I am sorry, I may not be giving you the your required answer right now. But in coming years, is there chances that many of the countries will come out from the Kyoto Protocol, like US is still not part of, and Canada has left it. See, Kyoto Protocol and this COP meeting are actually that only. I think in COP 28, US has also agreed and signed that and become part of that. Right, Kyoto Protocol earlier agreement was not there, but all these COP meetings are taking place to ensure that our emissions we should cut down on our emissions, and global warming should not go beyond 1.5 degrees centigrade. So there is a change which is happening around. Maybe certain countries are not looking for it, but once the world is forcing, I mean, it is the natural forces which is taking place, so people may have to get aligned to it. I mean, that is what my take is. Even when US was not ready to it, but no, again, they have to participate there. When if you are going to use something which is not being generated by world as a whole, no, it will not be useful or other. I mean, for your own production and generation. Are there region specific emission factors as well? For example, a different emission factor for Calcutta, Punjab, NCR. If so, data publicly available? Yes. For scope 2 emissions for electricity, it is available. Tier 1 factors are global factors, as I mentioned, which is available everywhere and applicable for any place. Only tier 3 factor. Now, for example, let's say our refinery is in Mumbai, and there is a refinery in Punjab which is generating fuels and all that. So if you are asking that tier 3 factor, he has to calculate for its own fuel and give it to you. But what you are looking for is, if only for electricity you are asking, yes, they are available. They are available in CEA guidelines, right, which you can use it. But normally, to such granular level for this factor may not be useful. See, I mean, this is not money. It is approximation only. One thing you take it for granted, even the factor, let's say if I tell you 2.2, 2.6 is the factor, and you have taken 2.61, right? Nothing is not going to fall, or nothing is going to take place. This is not money which you are having in your pocket. It is estimation only, right? So generally, it does not make much difference, which I'll show you in my next slides. Can someone take this GHG emission accounting as research area in coming years? Second thing, can we rely on ratings? Because there are some companies which are tobacco company and still receive good ratings in ESG ratings. See, again, now rating is another very tricky area, I would say. because the same company can be rated good and the other rater can rate him bad, right? So that is one way of looking at it. Now, tobacco company, you have given example. I'll take my own company example. How do you rate us? Now we are generating, our product is fuel only, no? Anything which we are going to sell it only going to create emissions only, right? So that does not make difference the kind of product what industry is generating. It altogether depends on the initiatives what we are taking. We are generating fuel for what? For the mobility of the country, for using as a fuel, for using as energy in different processes. Because if that will not be used, no, it cannot run, right? So you do not consider as a bad company. But actually, if I give my example, we are generating those, our main product is that which is actually creating GHG emissions. But yes, we are taking a lot of initiatives, and I cannot compare, no, let's say the ITC or tobacco company, they have their own product. Let's say even if there are cigarettes which people are consuming, you cannot stop people's habits, ideas, other things. And government is getting a lot of money out of it. So I really don't know what to talk about here. Correct. Now, rating agencies, as I mentioned, there are various raters. Let's say CDP, DJSI, these are global raters. Then you have Indian raters, no, which you are already aware of, like CRISIL, CARE, and so many. So, how they rate, what they rate, they have a procedure, but it is very fishy. What is the scope for individual CA? There is another thing. Somebody talked about research. Research area and GHG emission. See, you can do anything in the GHG emissions, but research is for the people, those who are scientists, those who are in lab, those who are actually going to look into the kind of product which is getting generated. I think I really don't know whether, no, I mean, my understanding is you all are from the financial field. So I don't know how far no research in this emission accounting would be useful. But there are already so many papers and things like that are available. I think right now people are focusing more on life cycle assessment of the product which is being produced through different global softwares, because normally we are not aware for the production of any component or any item what is the amount of energy which is being consumed and associated with that product. Let's say cement, rail, something else, even crude. Correct. So when we are producing crude, what is the value which is being associated with that crude? So those things can be more into research as of now. Let's say ethanol even. Ethanol, we are making ethanol with different kind of sources. But with what kind of source, what is the amount of emission which is there associated? No, that has to be looked into. What is the scope for individual CA practice, specifically person in? What is the scope for individual CA practice? GHG accounting, what are the leading accreditation or courses for an individual to get professional expertise in this field? See, you want to take our role here now. Correct. But okay, I'll answer this. The scope for CA. See, as I mentioned to you, BRSR is part of annual report today. So the practice for CA is getting into the parameters or the accounting parameters which are given in ESG with respect to ESG field. And I think energy emissions are one of the important parameters there. So that is how that gets associated with your CA practice. And SEBI has already given a leverage that anybody who is practicing that even a CA can also give the assurance with respect to ISA 3000. So you can, I mean, depending on that, you can look into the kind of field which is open. I think that is the reason why even CAs today are looking into this kind of a field which was earlier not there. What are leading accreditation or courses for an individual to get more professional expertise in this field? See, Bureau of Energy Efficiency is coming into a field of verifier for GHG accounting. Then there is a energy auditor. Then you have ISO certification courses. Then you have, let's say, ISO 14001. Lead auditor for environment. Correct. I mean, the numerous courses are there, no, for this kind of a field. But only difficulty is typically for GHG accounting, there is no course. But I am sure that BE is Bureau of Energy Efficiency is soon going to come out with this. Otherwise, all leading colleges like IIMs, IITs, they have certain courses onto this field. Which big car manufacturers? Why big car manufacturers are not stopping the diesel car production? They are also responsible for the NDCs. See, nothing can happen now within a day. I'll give you example of our company. When we started putting EV charging station, we had one station between Bombay and Pune. In a month only, sometimes one car will come for charging. Do you think is it a viable business, sustainable? So if I put investment over there, no, I will be into losses only. And if I am into losses, no, do you think I'll put more vehicles? No. So similarly, the car manufacturer also has to cut down depending on the requirement of the public. He cannot make and create and then keep it there. It will happen over a period of time, maybe no more. And today, like as I mentioned, there was one. Today we have 4,000 retail outlets where we have EV charging facility across country, right? So scenario is changing very fast. I mean, when the requirement will be not there, then do you think any car manufacturer will produce diesel car? No. But the problem in India is diesel is still cheaper than petrol. Are you aware kerosene is costlier than diesel today? I don't know how many people are knowing about it. Kerosene, which was earlier being considered as a mixing fuel in diesel, is no longer there. Right? Government has almost stopped kerosene, and today the rate of kerosene has gone beyond diesel or even petrol. So nobody wants kerosene. Now today it is a typical household product or industrial product. Okay. EV vehicles are environment friendly, but the efforts will be failed if we do not have a policy for recycling of batteries at the earliest. Your take, sir. No, I am with you. I am totally with you. I think this is one part now which still a lot of research is taking place. What kind of batteries are to be used, whether lithium batteries are available, or maybe people are researching into sodium batteries. Right, because the lithium is one of the constituent in this battery, which is not much available here. We have to be dependent on China again. I think, and the disposal of batteries are yet to be seen. No, because this is again a hazardous waste. No, how to use, what metals are to be extracted and used. It's a difficult industry. But yes, maybe slowly more and more technology will develop, because this field will going to go up, and then people will realize to find out what is the possible method. What about RBI proposed climate disclosure? What will be the impact? Now this is the regulation again. RBI proposed disclosure is something called TCFD. Right. Globally, there's a framework called TCFD. एक second. TCFD, it's the full form is Task Force on Climate Related Financial Disclosure. Here RBI is also mentioned to the bank that no, whenever you are going to give loan, you have to find out with the industries their financial disclosure on the climate related activities which they are going to carry out. Right. Now, everything is getting into alignment only. It's in, I mean, let's say, no, you are giving a loan to a company which is into, no, generation of more and more coal, which RBI or the country or the government is not interested more into, because our commitment to the globe is different. So I think this is how it is being taken into account, and that is what the policy which they want to frame it on the banks, so that bank would also focus on giving loans to the industry which is going for green energy or green initiatives. Currently, my organization follow GRI standard for sustainability reporting. Should we change into BRSR? No. See, BRSR is a different framework altogether, which is a part of annual report, which has got 9 principles, which talks about what is to be done with respect to those 9 principles only. But GRI is a large framework where so many things which you can disclose with respect to environment, social, and in detail. That is a question-based format. Here it is a large format. This is also question-based, but here you have a more, detailed way of positioning yourself to your stakeholders or even to your globe. I don't know which organization you are working with, but this framework which you are talking about could be similar to IR framework, integrated reporting framework, where on different aspects you give more reporting. Correct. What SEBI has done in BRSR, they have taken some part of GRI into it, but not in toto. So you cannot replace it, you can map it. In GRI, you can map BRSR. There are certain questions, or certain items which has already been reported in BRSR. In your GRI reporting, you can map that. But GRI, I think it's a more detailed reporting. If you want, you can go to public portal, look into BPCL reporting on GRI. We are also making our sustainability report on GRI. It's a more comprehensive reporting, I would say. And this is a voluntary report. See, GRI is a voluntary reporting today. Do we include biofuel in the scope emission calculations? How the target is fixed for every year for offsetting? Yes, biofuel can be taken. Actually, biogenic emissions are supposed to be almost zero. But yes, some emissions are there. So you can take in your scope calculations biofuel also. But biofuel is normally being taken as one of the levers to cut down the emissions. I think we have to stop somewhere if more questions are there. Is there any RE source capable to satisfy base electricity need currently taken care by coal? Okay. You please understand the system of RE. RE is normally being used as a hybrid solution. Correct. Now, RE cannot be generated 24 hours. Okay. RE maximum greening can happen only 70 to 80%. So balance base load, what will happen? And this is not directly being utilized, right? It is normally going through grid and being utilized. It's a grid, national grid, which you take it and through grid you are using. So you don't know whether it is a green power or a RE power or let's say coal power which you are using. Now here what you are saying is within your own unit you are putting RE and then saying can it take base load? See, you have to please consider the reliability of your own unit. Let's say whichever are continuous process plant, there you will have to depend on the grid. You will continuously draw the power from the grid so that your unit will not get affected and you are generating the renewable power and putting onto grid. Right, that kind of a system is possible. Or if you are going to become total emission free, then the balance of the part of the load, either it will come through grid or you may have to set up that amount of batteries. I don't know whether the answer which I have given is it acceptable. Is alternate fuel for furnace oil to reduce in boiler? Is alternate fuel for furnace oil? See, this is biofuel. Let's say CBG, right? Even hydrogen, or even you convert your furnace boiler to electric boiler, then renewable. A developed country which is importing from India wants net zero by 2030. India has a target by itne. Are we not losing trade from those countries by making our deadline too stretchy? No. See, countries are talking about it that they will be net zero by 2050. Nobody, as of now, people have not taken a target. Country has not taken a target of 2030. There are industries which are talking by 2050. But it altogether depends on the situation, no, globally, climate situation, country situation. Today, war has taken place, so fuel has come down. No, at one point of time, UK has said no, they are not going to use coal. Right? Again, they started using it. So things are not very stable. But yes, actions are happening. Right? And I don't think so. We are going to lose because no, our own per capita consumption is very high. Even our own, no, we are right now, whole country is looking for more and more setting up of refineries. Today, our refining capacity is around 250 MMT. We are looking for almost 350 to 400. So India is not going to get impacted at least by 2040, as I mentioned. I mean, this is the roadmap. It seems at least by 2040 we will have a growth of fuel by almost 4 to 5%. Correct. Later on, it may come down depending on the changes or alternate fuel which is taking place. Like as I mentioned, 2 years back, no EV station. Today there are so many. So change is happening very fast. We will have to go move along with the change. So I mean that is something we all have to keep track on. When a fuel is manufactured out of tire waste or plastic waste like pyrolysis fuel oil, what impact of such circular recycled fuel is on user company GHG emission if the user has replaced crude oil derived heating fuel? Like how same can be established? Too technical a question. Normally, pyrolysis is not being acceptable or accepted no process by most of the pollution control boards because it generates lot of emissions, right? Therefore, but yes, this is a process which is being used for generation of fuel oil. See, any fuel oil is a hydrocarbon only. You please consider it, right? Any fuel oil is a hydrocarbon, and you have to match the specifications of the fuel, whether you generate it through any process. Okay. And then you will have to also find out the calorific value for that generation of fuel, if it is no within the same range or not. If both are okay, if both are same, then you can no do any kind of a replacement. And emissions would remain same because depending on the carbon hydrogen ratio in that fuel. Correct. This plastic is also made out of hydrocarbon only. So similarly, if you have the same amount of hydrogen and carbon elements there in the generation of that typical fuel through pyrolysis, the amount of emission will almost be similar. Sir, we have a client in recycling lithium-ion batteries where we can find how to calculate. We have a client in recycling. We have a client in recycling lithium-ion batteries. Where can we find how to calculate EPR? Sorry, I have not understood this question. We have a client in recycling lithium-ion batteries. Where can we find how to calculate EPR? How EPR is connected here? The EPR, my understanding is there are rules, guidelines which are there, which is on this Environmental Protection Act, which government has no issued somewhere in 2016. And depending on the various products, let's say plastic is one, recycled oil is another one, batteries is also another one. So you will have to find out in those guidelines what is the amount of batteries recycling under EPR is supposed to be carried out as per statutory requirements. If once that will be done, then you can know, I mean, take that, use that person or that unit to understand what is the number of batteries can be given to him for recycling. I don't know whether I answered your question or not, but I think for that you will have to see the guidelines of EPR for battery disposal. What are the difficulties an organization is facing in showing non-financial data and in reporting process? On ground level, how these government compliances are able to get managed in reporting? See, this is not very difficult. See, the problem what happens is in a smaller industry, not much of a difficulty because the fuel used is very low. It normally difficulties happen in the larger industries like us, or you consider bank. Bank has got 1,000 branches. In 1,000 branches, maybe he is using some amount of fuel here and there. No, it's very difficult to calculate that. No, somebody is keeping a record, then putting into the system. You got a portal there. You are going to calculate, compile all that data every day on day in day out basis. Like we have a portal. We got 80 units of depot, we have 54 units of LPG plants, and we have 22,000 retail outlets. Now, all retail outlets which are dealer driven, if today I say a dealer, you start putting on monthly basis, certain data or daily basis, you think he will do it? 90% of the time he'll say, sir, I have forgotten. I think the data compilation or the getting that data filled by the person is the most difficult task in compiling of that data. Once you have that data, then it's only calculate. I mean, multiplication with the emission factor, and you can calculate the GHG emissions. So that is not much difficult. Only thing is the large amount of data handling is most difficult. On ground level, how these government compliances are able to get managed in reporting. See, government compliances are not there in reporting per se, but yes, in that framework, you are supposed to report on the environmental non-compliances or environmental initiatives which has taken place. Government non-compliances are normally with respect to the act, like Environmental Protection Act. No, disposal of hazardous waste you have to maintain, air water consent you have to maintain. I mean, reporting does not have any much link with respect to this, but yes, in reporting non-compliances, if it is there, which you are not reporting, that means you are cheating. Like you are publicly not reporting what violations are you doing with respect to reporting. I have seen a BRSR report of a company who is ranked as 910 as per capitalization rank. They report nil emissions data. They are engaged in retailing of natural gas CNG filling cylinder manufacturing. It indicates that implementation of all these standards is very less. Yeah. I think somebody who is putting nil data would not be acceptable because at least he must be using electricity there. Right. So saying nil is not acceptable. Normally, as I mentioned to you, there are three scopes, 1, 2, and 3. If nothing is there, then scope 3 would be there. He may be traveling. Correct. Or if nothing is there, then at least electricity is consuming. Right. If he is not burning any fuel, you can report nil if you are not consuming any fuel. Right. But the other things is very, very difficult for you to say. Disposal is solar panels is also a risk to climate like EV batteries. 100% acceptable. Again, no, this panel disposal is also one of the major item which as of now it has not come into picture. But I am sure slowly when the solar panel will become disposable, then only this, I think people will start looking into it, what is to be done. Right, because the solar panel life is considered to be somewhere around 20 to 25 years. So, and this technology is not very old. I mean, earlier it was being used, but it was not commercially viable. I think last 5-10 years it has become it is coming rampantly within the country. But disposal is, yes, what you said is very correct. It may take time for people to understand how to dispose it. Again, it's a very slightly tedious process where you have to go for pyrolysis. You may have to take out metals. You have to take out different constituents and recycle them. Are CBAM computations within the scope or needs other skills? See, very difficult for me to answer you what is within the scope of CA. But if you are exporting and the importing country is asking you to meet the CBAM guidelines, or they would say that no, I will take that product provided you add this carbon tax, then I am sure you will get involved into it. Because again, everything will be related to financial transactions only. So your involvement or who is going to get involved within the company, I may not know. But if this is there, then CBAM is nothing but carbon taxation for export to the European countries. I think we will stop it here because I had something more actually to give you so that you are in a position to calculate, right? And it is already 12:30. Correct. So, Manish, is it okay now?
Yes, sir. We can continue the questions later on.
Yeah. So what I will do now, there are certain things which I am also related to our company. Now, normally, that how GHG emissions are going to take place because through the energy producer only, right? Except coal we are not producing, but all other fuels what we are producing are normally giving emissions. So we have various factors, we have various fuels which we are consuming in day-to-day life in our refinery as well as through the consumers. Correct. So that is why I am also relating to it. No, one fuel or the other you must also be consuming here and there. Now here, as I mentioned, right? I mentioned to you IPCC factor. IPCC, as I mentioned to you, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So this is an agency, an NGO, which has which is working on climate change and making standards, etc. These are the factors which they have calculated and put it into their own guidelines and standards. There is another factor called DEFRA, and this is another factor called Tier 3. You can have so many more. Correct. So when we were actually calculating, doing accounting with respect to our company, and we were having we used to have different factors which are being taken by different units. Let's say one refinery is using Tier 3. Here the corporate office we are using some factor, let's say DEFRA. Somewhere somebody is using GHG protocol, some factor. Somebody is using IPCC. So what we did when we are making our own roadmap, we thought why not we find out which factors are supposed to be taken by us and which are more important and which gives more standardization for any unit. I am just giving you a purview. After that, anybody, you have to decide on your own what is to be done. Now, coming to this, I will. I will tell you one system here. Let's say IPCC factor, and what is the difference between, let's say, IPCC and DEFRA? Normally, emission factors, when you calculate GHG emission, what you do is you check what is the amount of carbon dioxide generated, CO2, correct? And with that only, and CO2 is considered to be having as 1 unit. 1 ton of carbon dioxide generation means 1 unit of emission. Okay, 10 unit generation means 10 unit of emission, correct? So anything is related to carbon dioxide only. So normally anybody who is reporting factor would be on the basis of amount of carbon dioxide generated. But what we find is there are 7 gases, GHG gases. And IPCC, when they declare factor, they at least consider 3 gases which are associated with burning of that fuel. Correct? The 3 gases would be CO2, CH4, N2O. So their weightage has also been considered in those guidelines which has been made by IPCC. You go to DEFRA, you go to EPA, even Tier 3 factor also. When we burn a fuel, and if you want to calculate the amount of emission, we may not be able to capture methane separately to find the weight of that methane into calculation of that factor. Correct. So when we were assessing, analyzing all these things, we found that I think the IPCC factors are more relevant because at least it is considering 3 gases. Like fourth gas is very, very small. Normally, the emissions which are taking place are majorly in the form of carbon dioxide and methane. Methane is another, slightly important, not very important, generally not there, because methane, if generated, is normally get burnt. Correct. And generate again carbon dioxide. Correct. So methane per se is important for upstream industries like ONGC. Correct. Those who are involved into upstream activities. Downstream activities like refinery and marketing, hardly methane has got an effect. But these factors are considering that. Correct. So let us see how this factor has been calculated. Now, with respect to IPCC, what we are supposed to do is we have to find out the net calorific value of any fuel. For easing purpose, I have taken diesel as a fuel. Right? Diesel is commonly used as a fuel. Its net calorific value we have considered from this IPCC table. I'll show you. I have already opened that table. See here, if you look at diesel oil, right? Diesel oil, it has got a factor as calorific value TJ, terajoule per gigagram, 43. Correct. So this we have taken factor as net NCV as 43, converted into megajoule per kg. Okay, you assume that what I am showing you, that calculation is correct only. If you calculate, you will find the same value. Here in this table, it is showing as 4.3, right? 43, sorry. So conversion of 43 TJ upon GG is equivalent to 43 MJ upon kg, right? Then emission factor as per IPCC of fuel with different constituents has also been given. Default emission factors was stationary combustion in the energy industries, kg of greenhouse gas per TJ on a net calorific value basis. Now, once again, if I have taken diesel, see, I have taken diesel for the ease. Now, there are so many fuels which are available. Whichever fuel is you are using, including petroleum, coke, lubricant, bitumen, naphtha, ethane, LPG, petrol, motor gasoline. Petrol is actually motor gasoline, aviation gasoline, anything which you are using. You will see those values in the similar fashion. You can multiply. Diesel I have taken as an example. Its value for default emission factor is 74,100. Right. I have taken methane ka value also 3. I have taken N2O ka value also 0.6. So if you consider here the calculation, I have taken emission factor as 0.0000741, 74100 divided by 10 to the power 9, which will give me the value of ton CO2 per mj. This is only a conversion factor. Don't get confused here. I am only showing you the value here and only converting that into the required units, nothing else. That anybody can do? No, sorry. That anybody can do, seeing these values here, right? This is in TJ, kg per TJ. TJ is terajoule, 10 to the power 9. So diesel fuel I have taken default emission factor, this 7 for 1000. This only we have done 7 for, see here, 74100 divided by 10 to the power 9. So this has become ton CO2 per mj. That 3 you have seen that again not divided by 10 to the power 9. I have taken ton CH4 divided by mj. Now this is ton CH4 methane. Right. Now here emission factor nitrous oxide, again I have taken ton N2O per mj. Now we have to convert everything to CO2. Correct. Now for conversion of CO2, we have to consider global warming potential, which is also another table in IPCC. Now see here, global warming potential are different gases in as per IPCC is CO2 is considered to be 1, like 1 meter, so 1 unit. Okay, CO2 is 1, methane is 28, nitrous oxide is 265. Similarly, all other gases, no refrigerant gases, they have a different potential, different factors which are also mentioned here in this table. Whichever is applicable to you, that can be used here. Hydrofluorocarbons, no, like what gases we are using in our refrigerant plants. Somewhere it is important, but it is very difficult to find out no, the amount of refrigerant which you are going to use it in your AC in, let's say, 5 years. The value will be so small that you can even ignore also. Correct? So if we go here, I have taken the weightage of all three. To calculate this factor, what I have done is, I hope you are able to see this. To calculate this factor, what I have done is, to see the calculation, C43, C14. C14 means net calorific value into C15 into C18. C15 is this one, emission factor of carbon dioxide multiplied by GWP. C16 multiplied by C19, that is emission factor of methane into its global warming potential. And second is emission factor of nitrous oxide into its global warming potential. So all that I have multiplied, right? And then divided by C13. C13 is density of diesel. So I could get this factor as this value, 0.00264 tons CO2 equivalent per liter. This I have only converted into kg for diesel, which is 2.64 kg CO2 equivalent per liter. Now, what is the meaning of this? That 1 liter of diesel actually generates 2.64 kg CO2. Normally, every fuel, as a thumb rule, you can say take 1 liter will produce approximately 3 liter, or 1 kg will produce approximately 3 kg. Now you can take it as a thumb rule. If you need to calculate somewhere and you say I have used 1 ton of diesel, no, unless you calculate, you can straight away say it will generate 3 tons of carbon dioxide. Just for the sake of ease, I am showing. Right, so I have shown you all three tables. Similarly, all factors are being calculated in the similar fashion. LPG, natural gas, naphtha, right, residual furnace oil, refinery gas, even coke also, pet coke, gasoline. All these factors has been biogas. You mentioned biogas, na biofuel. Even biogas, we have calculated the emission factor, which has come as very, very small. Okay. 2.7 kg CO2 per MT. 1 metric ton will generate only 2.7. There it was liter. So that means 1000 kg of biogas will generate 2.7 kg CO2 of emission. Why this is less is because no biogas or biofuel is actually considered throughout its life cycle. Because when the plant is there, it will absorb carbon dioxide, and when it is burnt, it is releasing carbon dioxide. So these factors consider the total life cycle of the product or biofuel, and that is how the total emission comes down drastically in case of biogas. Other biomass, wood, okay. So all these factors has been calculated, and not only this, we have compared also. Now, which factors are more affecting us? So that is what we have seen, like IPCC factor, that calculation is there. We have taken DEFRA factors also. We have taken tier 3 factors also. Now look at it. Now we were comparing diesel. Diesel, when we have seen, we found that as per IPCC, this is coming as 3196 kg CO2 per metric ton. DEFRA is showing 3205, and tier 3 is taking 3210. I was actually assuming that tier 3 will give me the lower factor, but actually it is giving slightly higher, right? It does not make much difference. Another important part is you use any standard, right? I am using IPCC, you are using DEFRA, does not mean that what you are using is wrong. Only thing is you have considered your assumptions are different. Okay, somewhere it is higher, somewhere it is lower also. Look at here. No, NAFTA is 3272, DEFRA is 3142. Somewhere else, no, this will be again lower. Now here LNG tier 3 is showing 2492, DEFRA 2550, IPCC 2695. So these factors, as I mentioned to you, all these are estimates only. Right? It is not a money, it is estimate. You are only trying to say that this is the approximately emissions which are taking place by consumption of fuel. But once you maintain, let's say once you have taken some assumption, you maintain that. You should not change assumption one after the other. I think that is what is also considered even in case of finances also. Now let's say you have considered certain assumptions and certain rules by which you are going to report in the balance sheet or your profit and loss statement. So same continuation need to be there. Same is also mentioned here that let's say you consider one kind of a factor and continue it. Right? Now here I have consolidated all this. And all fuels factors, their emission factors and their GHG potential and finally emission factor has been calculated by us for various fuels which are being used within our system. I hope you are in a position to see this. Gasoline, petcoke, refinery gas. Normally, these are majorly all fuels considered. If anything is still left, no one can go around and have a look there. Even refrigerants we have taken. Correct. Now coming to grid electricity. The grid electricity, this factor is given by CEA, Central Electricity Authority. Right. Now this is tier 2 scope 2 factor. Because CEA is an Indian concern. Right? Indian conditions, no, they are specifying the factor. So, as per Indian condition, which is tier 2, right, they are giving this emission factors of the grid. Now, here as of now, the emission factor of the grid is power sector. Yes. Today, that emission factor of grid has come down to 0.71. 0.71 MT per MWH, megawatt hour generation of electricity. This is the factor which today they are showing. Okay. 0.71, 21, 22, latest figure they are showing as 0.71. When they have also considered, look at it, total carbon emissions, net generation, weighted average carbon emission factor of grid electricity, including RE. So today, when in the grid, RE is also being considered as one of the constituents, our emission factors have come down from 0.82 to 0.713 in the year 21-22. So today we are reporting as 0.71. Later on, if more and more renewable will come into grid, maybe this emission will come down. This emission factor will come down, right? Automatically, your emission values will also come down according to this. Okay. Now, this is a typical calculation which I am going to show you our industry. Now, we are using. Okay. You see that it's no that factor we have calculated. Now it is only accounting. Right now. So this is the fuel consumed. This is the factor we have calculated. This is the amount of emission which is taking place in kg CO2. My unit, one unit as I mentioned is empty CO2. So everything I will relate it to metric ton CO2 equivalent when I'm going to report. If you are going to ask how many units, I'll say 11.59 units. It is not 11,589. right? So similarly, diesel, I mean, there are so many. See, once you know the quantity consumed and you know the factor, now after that, it's only multiplication, nothing else. Right? So all this I have written, this electricity here, this figure which I am showing you is 1920. At that time, the emission factor reported by CA was 0.8. Today, we are using 0.71. Okay. Similarly, biomass, you see, the factor which I have taken is 25.84 CO2 per ton. Right? LPG is showing 2987. So if I replace LPG with biomass, no, it's hardly any emission which is taking place. I hope you understood this. Right? Therefore, we are saying that biogas will be, that fuels or the fossil fuel will be changed to biofuels to cut down emissions. Okay. Furnace oil, biofuel, then let's say diesel, gas oil, PSA of gas, furnace, refinery gas, coke, you see, coke ka factor is slightly higher. It is 3176 kg CO2 per ton. So what I'm only trying to show you, all this we have calculated, even methane emissions also we have calculated. Here I have multiplied with 28 as global warming potential. This got converted into CO2 emissions now. That is why the unit is CO2E, CO2 equivalent. Right? Total I have calculated, and after that I have done the addition here, which shows my scope 1 emission is so much, right? And scope 2 emission is so much. Scope 2 comes to electricity through grid, as well as one more place I am consuming electricity, which is no electricity consumption in one of the terminal. So these two additions I have done and I have reported here so much emissions which are taking place. Scope 1 emissions I have done and the total emissions which has been shown here. I think this is what from my end I wanted to show you with respect to how to carry out the accounting. See, everything is interrelated. Anywhere, whatever that you are going to do, ultimately first you have to report your emissions. After that, you have to give the initiatives how to cut down emissions or the actions which you are going to take it, how to report it also, which are the factors to be taken to be for reporting. My personal view I find, and even know our company's view is for standardization purpose, maybe we can adopt IPCC factors, but if you are going to use any other factor which is acceptable, let's say DEFRA, EPA and all that, it is not wrong. Only thing is you have to maintain that standard, but for the justification I am saying, or for clarification, we find that IPCC factors are at least considering 3 out of 7 gases. So my understanding is at least now it is taking 3 constituents which are possible, their weightage has been taken. And in toto, we find that there makes hardly much difference between the two. There may be consultants, those who are going to confuse you saying that, no, why don't you take tier 3 factors and all that. But the problem with those factors are they are not constant, consistent, and the person who is going to calculate would not give for the all fuels. He will say only 2 I can calculate, third I cannot, right? He will say only two he can do, third he cannot do. So that way, no, I mean, that standardization of the calculation may not happen. So the best part would be that consider those factors which can be standardized across your unit. Now, I think there is one more question which has come to that. Time is also there. Time is also, you can stop sharing if it is not required. No, you have seen this sharing, no, my screen? That Excel sheet which I was showing you?
Yeah, sir. Excel is being clear here.
That you can start now. Okay. So I think now you have any more questions. If you have, then I can answer that. Let's stop sharing now. If anything you want, any question is there, then I can answer.
Question?
Just one question.
One question is left, sir. We are sharing the same.
You are sharing, is it? Ek minute. I did not find a TR in the screen. Mhm. Hmm. Does the scope emission include biomass? Does the scope emission include? Yes. Scope emission include biomass. That no. If it is consumed as a fuel within your unit, it will be scope one only. Like what we have included is in scope one. You see here, biomass calculation is included in our scope one emission. See, this is our biofuel. This is our biomass. Biomass here calculated, and this is a part of calculation of emission. And here you see this is part of our scope one emissions. Right? Can you share the emission calculation document which are readily available online for use? I can do that. I can do that. I will send it to Shweta or Manish. No, they can forward it to you. These are no normally guidelines which are also available on net. But for convenience, no, I will share with you. With that, you can calculate. See, it is nothing but only multiplication of two columns. You need
Yes,
to
sir.
know
We
the
will pass
quantity.
it on to the participants.
Yeah. If anything more is there, you can also contact me offline. If anything is there, no, anybody through, I mean, either Manish or Shweta, no, you can, Swati, sorry. You can take the question, you can forward it to me, I can answer you no, as and when it is required. With ethanol lakh ton of CO2 in scope 1 and 2, how you are going to reduce it? Right? I think I have shown you the levers which we have with us. Okay, I'll show you here. Diesel consumed in DG set. See, there are DG set. Now, instead of DG set, we will have renewable. Okay, we will stop using DG set. Diesel consumed in vehicle, EV, right? LPG in canteen, electric, then solar, correct? Then FO consumed in boiler, electricity, then solar, right? Then FO, LSHS, no, we are CPP. CPP is again captive power project, again going for renewable and solar. And wherever we are using refinery gas, fuel gas, etc., green hydrogen and biofuel, biogas, CBG, compressed biogas. So those are the actions which can be taken by the company. On top of that, the further electricity is again solar. On top of that, what is remaining, right? What is remaining can be done through carbon offsets and certain amount of energy efficiency. Normally, what you do is you convert your consumption of energy of one fuel into one scope into the other scope and then cut down the emissions. You change it to electricity, then take solar renewable, right? Or you go for biofuel, provided that is available. We are also looking for a policy, something which is known as National Grid for biogas. Presently, it is not there, but most probably if government will come. And finally, there is a process called SMR that will get converted to using green hydrogen. Another process, carbon capture and utilization, which I mentioned. Whatever carbon dioxide getting generated, you can capture and then you can make different fuels like methanol, ethanol, and so many others. Is it okay? I think I have answered your question.
Yes, sir. No further questions, sir.
Yeah, so I take your leave. But you are most welcome anytime.
Yes, sir.
You may ask any question, right? Thank you.
Let's go the things.
एक second.
Sir, few minutes, sir.
Yeah.
Can you wait for a minute?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. We extend our sincere gratitude to Mr. Ashish Gupta for insightful session on greenhouse gas accounting, a comprehensive approach. Your comprehensive coverage of key topics including GHG, accounting standards, frameworks, and methods for measuring and calculating emissions has provided valuable insights. the session on reporting, disclosure, integrating GHG accounting into sustainability strategies, supported by case studies and best practices, has been truly enlightening. We greatly appreciate your expertise and guidance in helping us better understand how to navigate these processes and driving meaningful changes towards a more sustainable future. Now, I would like to ask Krati ma'am to present vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, sir. Dear speaker, guests, and participants, I want to extend my sincere gratitude to each one of you for contributing to the success of our webinar, Greenhouse Gas Accounting, a Comprehensive Approach. Firstly, a heartfelt thank you to our esteemed speaker, Mr. Ashish Gupta ji, for sharing your profound insights and expertise on greenhouse gas accounting. Your comprehensive analysis has provided invaluable insights on navigating this crucial aspect of sustainability strategy for businesses. I also want to express my appreciation to all the participants for your active engagement. Your thoughtful questions and contributions enriched our discussions, making them insightful and highly informative. A special acknowledgement goes to the organizing team and support staff for their meticulous planning and dedication behind the scenes. Your efforts ensured a seamless webinar experience, allowing us to delve deep into greenhouse gas accounting practices. I extend my personal thanks to our chairperson and vice chairperson for their visionary leadership in orchestrating this webinar. Let's carry forward this knowledge gained today to derive meaningful change in our organization and beyond. Together, we can pave the way for a more sustainable future. Thank you once again for your participation and valuable contribution. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you, Krati. Thank you very much, sir. I would also appreciate for participants to be there and listen to me for such a long time. But I hope the session was interesting and useful for them. If still no, from my end, if anybody has got any questions, you can always approach me. I'll try to give you the reasonable answer, whatever is available. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Krati ma'am,
Thank you so
for
much,
joining us
sir.
today. And thank you all participants for joining us today. Stay informed and continue your journey towards sustainability excellence by joining us in the future webinars. Stay connected. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Tech support, you can stop the recording.